You find that regulation in the UK is holding you back from growing how you want to?
I think we find that in almost every developed economy, including the UK. I think the difference in the UK is, on your own now, separate from Europe, it's a relatively small market for most multinationals and certainly for Americans. So something needs to be quite different to make it interesting. And flexibility, agility, business responsiveness, of course, with an eye toward, in our case, ensuring that NHS and patient care is enhanced as well. That's a path we would encourage.
Can the difference be made up? You talk about us being a smaller market now. Can we persuade you to make the kind of investments you might have made if we were part of a bigger market?
Well, I think so. If we had in a hypothetical world, a market of this size that really encouraged innovation, not just in investment, but in utilization, right? So that the system was set up to really take advantage of the breakthroughs in biomedical innovation, put them to work in the real world, study those effects so that globally that knowledge could be shared and really become kind of an incubator for access to these medications as well as utilization. That would be quite interesting, because then we could point to such a market and say, look here, they get the picture. Not only do they want our inward investment, which every country wants, but they put their money where their mouth is and deliver both a high growth environment for the industry, but also one that is a health system built around the idea that next generation technology can make a better world for its people. And I think that's a promise to continue to pursue. And this announcement today is a step.
Not cutting corners, not lowering standards, but making sure that the government takes on some of the burden of compliance so that our nation can benefit.
We heard from the boss of Eli Lilly on the programme earlier, David Rick, suggesting that's all very well, but if the NHS then, in the case, for example, of an innovative drug, says, no, we've got to hold the price down, no, we can't produce this new development, anti-obesity drugs, for example, there's not a lot of point. So you're willing to get rid of that red tape in order to allow those big US pharma giants to push their drugs into the health service quicker?
We are, Nick, and we're not just taking one step forward. Since we've come into government in the last couple of months, we're taking multiple steps forward. So for the first time ever, the Secretary of State for Health, Wes Streeting, has taken personal responsibility for spreading innovation through the NHS. That's the first time it's been a cabinet-level post. And it's great that the Chief Executive of Eli Lilly is here, and that Eli Lilly is playing a key part in this investment summit, because they have not invested freshly in our country for a very long time, and they now see this as a place to start doing business again.
This is really rather interesting, to use the language of the boss of Eli Lilly, Mr. Kyle. He said to us, you really need to get quite different to make things interesting. I think what he's saying is that for what he called a small market, which Britain is now because we're no longer in the EU, you have to be willing to regulate less than the EU in order to make it worthwhile for investors to come here. Is that what you're saying today? You will regulate less than the EU in order to make Britain more attractive?
Actually, what I would say that you need to regulate smartly.
Hey guys, we expected a race to the bottom post-Brexit under the Tories, but it seems like Labour may be heading down that path as well. I want to highlight two interviews. First, with a representative of a pharmaceutical giant discussing UK regulations post-Brexit, and second, with Peter Kyle, a government minister, talking about how Britain aims to be more flexible and nimble with regulations, especially for sectors like pharmaceuticals and medicine. The pharmaceutical rep was asked about regulatory challenges and pointed out that the UK, now a relatively small market outside the EU, needs to offer something different to attract investment, namely flexibility and agility. He suggested that if the UK can encourage innovation and offer a regulatory environment that works for businesses, it could become an incubator for biomedical innovation. It all sounds very promising on the surface, turning Britain into an incubator for innovation. But let's not forget, regulations, while sometimes seen as a burden by some businesses, are there to protect citizens, the environment, and even businesses from themselves. The sentiment of relaxing regulations was echoed by Peter Kyle. When pressed about cutting regulations to speed up access to new medicines, he talked about regulating smartly rather than cutting corners or lowering standards, but the implication was clear. Businesses want less red tape, and the government seems willing to provide that. The fear many of us had post-Brexit was that the UK would become a Wild West when it comes to regulations, especially under the Tories. Now it's very disappointing to see that even Labour, which should be pushing for stronger regulation, might be following suit in a bid to attract investment. Regulations, especially in critical areas like pharmaceuticals, are there for a reason, to protect the public. We don't want to be in a situation where we're loosening standards just to make Britain more attractive to big corporations. The EU, for all of its bureaucracy, has strong systems in place to protect consumers, workers and the environment. Companies will always seek to maximise profits, and without strong regulation, they'll pressure governments to bend to their will. We've already seen how the EU pushes back against large corporations like Apple and Google. A weak government, on the other hand, is more likely to give in to these pressures. The situation is concerning, as Labour, like the previous Tory administration, seems willing to deregulate at the expense of the British citizens. We need strong regulations to protect the public, not a race to the bottom to attract big business. But let me know what you think in the comments. I've been Jake from Just Jake, and as always, I'll see you next time. You actually made it to the end of the video. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, which, why haven't you already, is somewhere over there. And also, if you want to watch more videos, also check out over there. I've been Jake from Just Jake. See you later.